Hello and welcome to Protect Ukraine Now YouTube channel. As you know, Protect Ukraine Now is deeply involved in advocacy for Ukraine. We work in two directions. One of them is we reach out to the public. We ask you guys listening to this recording to speak up for Ukraine, pick up your phone, call your congressmen, call your senators, tell them why Ukraine is important to you. But we also do it ourselves. We go to Washington, D.C., we meet with not just congressmen and senators, we meet with their staff, with their legislative assistants. We talk to them about best ways to help Ukraine and best way to deliver meaningful assistance, weapons, and other important things for Ukraine to continue its fight against Russia. Today, I would like to show you an interview with good friends of mine, Sergey Lubarsky and Bill Cole. Bill is the founder of Peace Through Strength Institute. This is a new organization that I'm now part of, and our focus is primarily on advocacy on the Hill. We delivering to our lawmaker the ground truths from Ukraine and help them shape the policy that's going to be most beneficial for helping Ukraine and stopping Russian aggressor.
Thanks, gents, for joining my podcast and my show. And before we proceed, I would like each of you introduce yourself. I will start with Alec.
Hi, my name is Alec Kasman. I'm Director of Protect Ukraine Now, and I'm also Chief Strategy Officer at Peace Through Strength Institute. My story, I very quickly realized that Ukraine needs more support. There's a disconnect between what was announced as assistance to Ukraine and what was actually delivered. That's how Protect Ukraine Now came about. Since then, I worked with various groups to advocate for Ukraine, both on the Hill and among the diaspora.
So how long you been working for Ukrainian cause?
I would say very close to 3 years.
3 years. And what brought you there? What was the motivation factor?
This was existential for Ukraine, but also with a huge consequences for the rest of the world. As much as it appears that we're far away living in the United States, I always knew that it's going to affect me. It's going to affect my kids. If we don't stop that evil right now, everyone is going to be affected. So,
do you have any prior connection to Ukraine?
Of course, I was born there. I lived the first 13 years of my life in Kyiv.
So you lived in Kyiv for 13 years?
Yes.
And Bill, what about you?
My name is Bill Cole. I am founder of the Peace Through Strength Institute. I founded the organization 2 months ago. I've been involved in Ukraine advocacy since December of 2022, and there's a story behind that. During the day, I sell software into the autonomous space. I live in San Jose, California. I've been to Ukraine a number of times over the past couple of years, and looking forward to sharing stories on my time in Ukraine during this interview. So it's a real pleasure to be here, Sergey, and looking forward to this discussion.
So I have to confess, so Alec and I have been working for 3 years on the Protect Ukraine Now. Bill and I have met in Kyiv some time ago, completely accidentally, and the relationship clicked, and I have nothing but admiration to what both of them are doing. And they both were modest to admit they are providing advocacy for Ukraine completely free of charge. They donating their time and their money without anything material in return. Am I correct?
100%.
Yes,
100%.
100%.
All right, Bill. So, Peace Through Strength Institute. What is it? Sounds like something from the Trump repertoire.
As it should be. He's the president. So the Peace Strength Institute was founded under the following sort of guidepost that entered my brain. Entered my brain in early April of this year. I've been attending a number of summits in Washington. Usually, what I do is I go to Ukraine for about a month. I've done this 2 or 3, 4 times. I go to Ukraine for about a month to gain the ground truth. Gain the ground truth. I go as far as I can, as far as they'll allow me, to gain the ground truth, to really understand, the crux of the problem, and what can be done from my side of the pond. What can America do to create a just peace and create victory for Ukraine? So I attended another summit, my 3rd summit in April of this year, with my own plan. I had connected with Alec about a year ago, and I was really enamored with what he was trying to accomplish, which was he was trying to put a business plan in front of Congress, and therefore put a business plan in front of the White House to make sure that Ukraine got exactly what it needed, the right amount, and also try and put a timeline to it. So he and I really clicked. So we were kind of on our own mission in April of this year, meeting with our own congressional contacts, our own Senate contacts, House contacts. And during that time period, it became very clear to me that with this current administration and this current Congress, Ukraine had lost its voice, all the way from the president down through a number of amazing groups. They'd lost their voice, mainly, but they lost their voice because this is a new regime. This is a Republican president. This is a Republican Congress, and it's very difficult to shift after 3+ years with President Biden and 3+ years with a Democratic Senate. I saw that void. I'm going to call it a void as opposed to just a gap, and decided to fill it. Decided to fill it with an organization that could really focus on 2 constituencies. One, the ground truth. What's happening with our ally? What's happening with our incredible partner in Ukraine? What's the truth? So combine that with what does the American public want? What does the American public desire in regards to how we invest in foreign policy, in foreign conflicts, in foreign wars? So I put together the Institute, and I based it on that premise. We will pull together the ground truth combined with American opinion, and very professionally and systematically guide Congress and guide the White House in a direction that we believe, in this particular case, gets Ukraine into a position for victory and for a just peace, so they can gain back their freedom, and then in time, become the true democracy they want to be. Sort of the selfish position of all that is that I believe that peace and that freedom is really important to America and important to Americans. Because at the end of the day, a free Ukraine is going to secure national position for the U.S. as well. It's going to secure our country as well. And we can get into that in this discussion.
So let me ask you the question. So you've been in existence for 2 months as the organization, but you've been doing advocacy for a number of years.
Yeah.
What brought you to Ukraine? I mean, unlike Alec, you have no family connections, no cultural connections. What's your ancestry? You're Irish?
My family is from England and parts of Ireland and parts of Germany. I want to say there's a little Viking in there. There's got to be a little Viking in there. And they came over in the late 1400s, early 1500s.
To the United States.
Yeah.
So you have zero connection to Ukraine particularly. So what brought you here?
By birth, zero connection. So what brought me here? So I would say, sadly, I was probably a typical American when the full-scale invasion broke out. I thought Ukraine would fall in 3 days. I was pleasantly surprised that didn't happen. But did I put all my attention on it? No. I continued to do my life. I have 5 grown sons, so I'm busy. I have a big family. I have an important job I need to tend to, and I'm also single. So in late 2022, Christmas of 2022, I met someone. I met someone amazing. This person was.
Cherchez la femme.
Tell me what that means.
Always look for a woman. It's in French. Look for a woman.
All right. So this friend, he will go unnamed. This friend, and there's a reason for that. This friend was in Germany. And I immediately said, well, that's great. You're German. Nice to meet you. I'm not German. I'm Ukrainian. I was thoroughly embarrassed. I was embarrassed because I didn't know enough about Ukraine to have a reasonable conversation. So I very quickly started educating myself. And she very quickly told me her story. To make a long story a little shorter, my best friend is now a drone operator. She went back to Kyiv in April of 2023, enlisted in late summer 2023, went in as a media specialist. She's now a drone operator, does zero-line missions on a regular basis. My best friend in the world. I decided right off the bat, I've got to get my butt to Ukraine. Because I asked her very clearly, how do I help? How do I get involved? How do I help with the situation? So she introduced me to some amazing people. I started advising a couple of private companies, trying to help them do business in the United States. But really my intention was to get involved in this war, get involved in trying to help the United States be a good partner to Ukraine. So I went there. I went there in fall of 2023 for about a month. I went all over the country, delivering medical supplies, delivering generators. I put on a 4-day healthcare summit, helped put on a 4-day healthcare summit, raised funds for that, built some amazing relationships with the military, built some amazing relationships with the president's office, the private sector, did everything I could to go deep. I then came back and decided, okay, I need to get to Washington. So I attended my first summit in April of 2024. Very important summit. That summit was geared around, let's make sure we get the supplemental bill passed for Ukraine, which was $60 billion. I went to the summit with intention of just being a constituent, being a delegate, do the meetings, do what I'm told. When I was in Kyiv in the fall of 23, I had the honor and privilege of meeting some amazing Americans. I was charged with bringing an American medic in from the front to speak at this healthcare summit. And she had about 6 or 7 of her colleagues, Americans, who were in Kyiv doing rehab. They'd been injured. They were serving for Ukraine with Chosen Company. I took these amazing Americans out to dinner. And at that dinner with their girlfriends, at that dinner, they couldn't stop talking about Andrew Weber and Lance Lawrence. 2 Americans that were killed in Ukraine in July of 23. I took all that into the back of my mind, went back home, and then let's go back to April of 24. I'm at that summit. I'm in a big meeting with 500, 600 people. We're all getting trained on what should we say tomorrow when we go in front of Congress. On the stage was Megan Mobbs, who is CEO of the Weatherman Foundation. On the stage was Terry Lawrence, the mother of Lance Lawrence. On the stage was Carla Weber, the mother. This still chokes me up, okay? On the stage was Carla Weber, the mother of Andrew Weber. They were being moderated by a RASM person. I had no idea this was going to happen. I was very uncomfortable in my seat. I started crying in my seat. I didn't know what to make of all this because Andrew and Lance, they were in the back of my brain, and all of a sudden they're in the front of my brain. Long story short, I got to meet Terry and Carla, and we immediately bonded. I told them the stories of their son's friends who go unnamed in Ukraine, and I decided I need to get you in front of Congress. So we added a third mom to the equation, Allison McGowan, whose son Jericho was killed in the fall of 23. His body was still on the other side in April of 24. His body was still on the other side. So Allison, Terry, Carla, and Bill walked the halls of Congress. Many meetings. We definitely unlocked people. We definitely caught the attention of people. And I'll tell one clear story. We knocked on the door of Speaker Johnson. And remember, this is about 2 days prior to the supplemental passing. They didn't want to meet with us. They said we have no time. And I said, just give us 5 minutes. So they sent a staffer out, a young lady. And I said, you need to hear the stories of these 3 moms. Well, 45 minutes later, we got a great picture with the staffer and the 3 moms. I got her cell phone number. I texted the picture to her and I said, please give this to the speaker. And please tell the speaker the stories of these 3 moms. I want to say 2 days later, Speaker Johnson gave his iconic speech after the supplemental passed. And one clear thing that Mike said was, I do not want my 18-year-old son, who is going to the Naval Academy this fall, to be killed in a war like this. I knew at that moment, those stories went into his head. That picture went into his head. And I was very proud of those moms for having the courage to tell their stories to his office. So that was my first sort of foray into how do you deal with Congress? How do you really unlock Congress? And we can go from there, Sergey.
So you've been active. You guys both been active back in the United States. What have you done so far? What's been the accomplishment so far in a couple of months?
Yeah, so just in a couple months, I'll say this. The first thing we did, actually, we did this before we founded the Institute, which is our meetings in April. We came up with a 3-pillar plan. The 3-pillar plan for victory in Ukraine. That plan came from the thoughts and the ideas and the brains and the mouths of people like Lindsey Graham, people like Pastor Mark Burns, people like Senator Richard Blumenthal.
Have you met them all?
Absolutely, yeah. People like Congressman Don Bacon. 3-pillar plan is simple. It's 1, partnership. It's 2, arm them to the teeth. It's 3, sanctions. We published that plan. We promoted that plan in unison with all of those individuals and groups that I named. So over probably the first 2 or 3 weeks after that summit in early April, we heard from people like Senator Graham using these words. We heard from people like Don Bacon using these words in their social media, in their talking points, in hearings, and decided, okay, let's go further. So we started the Institute. And one of the first things that we wanted to do was do a poll. Let's take the 3-pillar plan. Let's take all the ground truth that we're going to develop as a team, from all of our knowledge from being in Ukraine. We pulled advisors together that are military analysts that understand what is it like to be in a drone war. What does it mean being a drone war? That's what it's really about. It's really about building the ground truth around the elements of war. And what does that mean to the world? What does that mean to Ukraine? So we commissioned a poll with a Republican pollster who's been doing this for 30 years. And
So do you have a result?
we have the results.
Oh yeah, we do.
They're amazing. Yeah.
Alex, let Alex describe the result.
Let Alec comment on the results. He's great with this.
Sure. Let me give you a couple of points. I'm specifically.
Give me one couple. Just go through the whole list.
All right, fine. So 74% of Americans say the war in Ukraine should be a U.S. priority. 74%.
74, 3/4.
Yeah.
So how many percent said no? The rest?
Yeah.
It was the binary choice?
It was a choice. Yeah. There are actually questions like
It should be like, I don't know. So how many percent said I don't know?
Probably very little, like below 10.
All right. So what's the next question?
Then the next question was about pressuring Ukraine to give up land, and only 29% think President Trump should pressure Ukraine to give up land. The rest don't think so. In fact,
only 29% of Americans sharing that Trump's idea that Ukraine should give up land.
Compromise with land, yeah, absolutely. Furthermore, 82% believe letting countries take land by force is a dangerous precedent. 82% of Americans don't believe in forceful
land grab
territory. Yeah, but land grabs, yeah. 84% back a bill to sanction Russia natural resources sales. 76% of Americans believe that all the military aid we have delivered and continue to deliver is justified.
How much again?
76%.
76% don't regret
yeah.
delivering the aid to Ukraine.
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. With, I believe, some 30% out of them saying that, hey, Ukraine is destroying resources of our enemy, of our adversary, Russia. So that's why we should help them. 58%, probably my favorite, 58% of Americans say that Trump should increase military aid to levels necessary to stop advancement of Russian forces and to protect civilian infrastructure and, of course, civilians themselves. So protect the skies of Ukraine. Not just a little boost, to the levels necessary to stop Russia.
So you guys financed that poll out of your pockets. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
That's
did anybody notice that? Did it make any dent politically, that poll?
Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's Bill.
But before we go there, though, I want you to know, and I want your audience. Okay, this is the first in-depth poll. We asked 27 questions. This is the first in-depth poll on changing U.S. voter views under the Trump administration. It's probably the first in-depth poll during this war. Every poll we've seen is very surface oriented. Do you stand with Ukraine? You know, how do you feel about Ukraine? It did not go into the depth we went into. We did that on a very purposeful. We wanted to know specifically, do you think we should continue to support Ukraine at a military level? We use very key words. Do you think the mineral deal is a good deal? We wanted to get very specific. Because of that, the survey took some time. It took some time, but we wanted true answers. We wanted real in-depth answers from America. We've heard enough about let's stand, however long it takes. And by the way, those numbers haven't been great. So we were very intent on getting the truth out of the American public and combining that with what we know about the ground truth in Ukraine. We certainly, I think the results are beyond our expectations, but we're very pleased that Americans feel like we do in regards to Ukraine, and they understand that Ukraine is just like America. We have the same values, we have the same concerns for our families, we have the same concerns for our future. So that is what came out of that. Now let me talk about what you just suggested. The poll came out at about 10 a.m. Eastern time on Thursday, the 12th of June.
June. So it's like a few days ago.
Yes.
A few days ago,
Very
last Thursday. So when the poll came out, Alec, myself, our two advisors, Yulia O'Connell and Alex Drucke, who, by the way, we're going to talk about a little bit. Alex Drucke, prisoner of war, American prisoner of war in Russia for 105 days. He's now an advisor for our institute. The four of us were in that hearing. We were in the Armed Services Committee hearing in Washington in a closed room in the chamber. We were there because we got there early, because we know how to do this. We got there early. The poll came out, buzzed my phone. I took one position, which was the 58% of Americans approve of military aid to Ukraine at higher levels. I took that one position and texted it to the chief of staff of Don Bacon's office. So Don Bacon was about fifth in line. Did I just lose you guys?
No, you're good. You're good.
Oh, sorry.
I just made you single speaker.
Don Bacon was about fifth in line in regards to being able to make a statement or ask questions. And so I saw that. I texted it to Mark Dreiling, chief of staff of Don Bacon's office, and I also emailed it to Don and Mark. I emailed them the entire poll results. I then got some feedback from Mark immediately, and then started texting him back and forth and said, have him say something along the lines of the 58%. And I had spoken to Don Bacon ahead of the hearing, as I walked up to him and shook his hand and talked to him. I've met him many times. But that's what happens when you're able to build those relationships and get inside the four walls. You're able to have those kind of conversations.
Bill,
So,
for those people who don't know who Don Bacon is,
yes.
Would you describe who that person is?
Don Bacon is Congressman Don Bacon, Representative Don Bacon. He supports the 2nd District of Nebraska. So he's a congressman.
He's an American congressman.
American
and he's probably the most vocal supporter of Ukraine.
He is. Now. He is one of
and
the.
You
one
have
of
a good, and you just email him this thing, and you have a good personal relationship with him.
I have an incredible personal relationship with him, and I've been building that relationship for about 9 months. That's correct.
All right. Sorry to interrupting you. Just want to.
No, absolutely not. And so I was very observant. I was watching Don, and he was looking at his phone, getting prepared for his words. We have the clip. Obviously, we're there. We filmed it ourselves. As a matter of fact, I'm chuckling in the background. Don said 2/3, and actually, let me rewind a little bit. Secretary Hegseth, a few questions before, said, "Look, Ukraine is not the United States. Ukraine is not in NATO, and we've spent billions supporting Ukraine." He did that for a reason. He wants everyone to know we don't need to worry about Ukraine right now. They're not the United States. They're not in NATO. Back off. So Don then said, Secretary Hegseth, you need to understand that 2/3 of Americans support military aid to Ukraine or support Ukraine. 2/3 of Americans. When he said 2/3, I started chuckling as I'm videoing Don speak. So he took our poll information in real time through texting back and forth with his chief of staff and went toe to toe with the secretary. That's how it works. That's how you get things done in Washington. That's how you win. And post that afternoon, Don and Mark and myself had an amazing exchange over email.
So who's Mark? We don't know who the Don
Yeah,
is.
no,
Who's
no
Mark?
problem. Mark Dreiling is Don Bacon's chief of staff.
I see.
Yeah. Mark Dreiling.
And
Mark Dreiling is
so outside of that, how else that survey has been published or disseminated through the public? Alec, do I have any updates on that?
absolutely. So a
Let
couple,
Alex speak on that.
couple points of light.
Give
Right now,
chance Alex to speak. Hold on, Bill.
all right, go for it. Go for it.
All right.
Give Alex some public time here.
Yeah, so this survey got posted on Globe Newswire, which is basically an aggregator. A lot of news agencies source from that. So far, over 836 news agencies have reposted the results of this survey. This is amazing. It's on various
So
Fox
less than a week, or just within a week, 800 plus news agencies reported the survey that your institute put together.
within several
Plus,
days.
it was quoted in Congress. Am I hearing correctly?
This
Yes,
is
sir.
absolutely so. Yeah.
So, guys, this is incredible, considering so little time. And my question to you: why is anybody else in the United States doing the same type of work? RASM, some other organizations. How's it become that you guys pretty much single-handedly tackling this problem?
So among everything we have done throughout this period of time, we were also very closely watching who else is here helping Ukraine, who else we can partner with, who else we can be part of, of a group, right, that advocates for Ukraine. And we have seen great organizations doing a lot of support. And just to be clear, the support we have seen from the United States to Ukraine to this date, this is partially thanks to those organizations. We also have seen that they come short of delivering concise, meaningful message that is going to be based on ground truths, on material evidence, on actual planning to help Ukraine achieve decisive victory. That piece was absolutely missing, and it is missing. Oh, it's what we're here, right? So PTSI is going to fill in that gap, as we mentioned earlier, but we haven't seen, unfortunately, anyone else going to that level.
So besides your organization, there's nobody else out of the hundreds of organizations who support Ukraine advocating for weapons to Ukraine. Am I hearing correctly?
Well, they advocate, but they focus on things that are on the surface. Like, for example, this week, most advocacy was around passing sanctions bill, which is important. But we all know that
No, I'm talking specifically weapons to Ukraine, sanctions, declaring Putin the war criminal. It's all good stuff. But you're not going to win the war with that.
there's not a single organization that is focused on weapons. They could mention it as part of the general conversation, but no one is doing that specifically.
So that's a hugely important thing. So outside of just formed by Bill and your organization, not a single volunteer organization advocating for weapons to Ukraine. They're doing everything else.
Detail, not to this level of detail. And let me also answer in sort of my way, right? So I met Alec in April of 2024 at the summit that I mentioned earlier, right? And I sat at a table with Alec. We were supposed to just do a mock meeting together. And I could see in his eyes frustration. And I asked him out loud, why are you frustrated? He's like, well, Bill, I have a lot of ground truth data on what's needed at a military level, a lot of ground truth data. And I'm struggling to get this ground truth data communicated through this kind of delegation, this kind of summit into Congress. And I said, well, can I see it? Can I see the data? He showed me detailed spreadsheets, a detailed business plan on what is needed to get Ukraine over the top at a military level, at a weaponry level. Mm-hmm. And I saw the frustration in his eyes. I saw the same frustration 6 months later at the next summit. And so I immediately reached out to Alec after the election, November 2024. I said, Alec, we need to do something because these groups And God love them. God love Razum, ACU, Nova Ukraine. God love them for what they've been doing. But they do not have the makeup. They do not have the confidence. They do not have the experience to deal with President Donald Trump and to deal with a Congress that is aligned with President Donald Trump. So Alec and I said, hey, we've got to position ourselves where we can be the voice for Ukraine and for all of these NGOs that are trying to get things done. And so let me put a finer point on it. I have said through a whisper, through Pastor Mark Burns, I have said to President Donald Trump, sir, Ukraine is trying everything they can to figure out how to work with America and provide you with the ground truth on what they need. They are struggling communicating that. And more importantly, sir, they are struggling with how to communicate this to you. Clearly, what happened in February of 2025 is an indication of how much they're struggling. That issue between Zelensky and Vance and Trump, it was very clear to me on that day. Wow, if someone doesn't try and mediate this, if someone doesn't try and guide this, Ukraine is going to be ignored by the White House and ignored by Congress and ignored by America. And I'm not going to let that happen. I'm not going to let that happen. So that is, to answer your question, is anyone doing this? No, not to this level of detail, not having conversations with congressional offices to say, hey, what are the tools we can build for you so we can unlock funds to get Ukraine funded to a level where they can get over parity at the battlefield so they can get to this just peace and get to this ceasefire that everyone wants, right? Who's doing that? Who's having those conversations? Nobody. We are. We're the ones that are having these detailed conversations. Now, where will the challenge come in? The challenge will come in is when they say, great, build this with us. The challenge will come in is how do we fund this? That's always the challenge. We're well prepared to help them with that. We have all kinds of avenues we can go with that. But if you're not digging in the weeds with them at a true detailed business plan level, number one, they're not going to listen to you. That's what they want. That's what they've always wanted. I look at that supplemental bill. There's no plan in that supplemental bill. There's no business plan. There's no timeline. They did it because they had to do it. They probably did it for moral clarity. So if we do this again, and we need to do this again, if we appropriate or we find funds, we will have a plan. It'll be a very detailed plan. It will show the return. It will show the return to President Donald Trump. Most likely what it will do, Sergey, it will show him in Congress, if you make this investment, you'll be able to build your drone dominance. You'll be able to build your golden domes effectively within budget, within the right timeline. That is how America will line up with Ukraine. And that's what we're pitching. That's what we're promoting. Our only drawback right now is we need to do this every day. Every day, 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, 15 hours a day. So our number one objective as an organization right now is to fund this. To fund this so we can continue to be that strong voice with Congress and build on these relationships we described already.
So before we go to funding, so let me just summarize that part.
Yeah.
You are, after like 3 years of the war, finally, one is a member of a Ukrainian diaspora, one that you, Bill, who basically before the war had no connection to Ukraine, decided to do through advocacy, advocating the increase of weapons to Ukraine as their means to increase protection for the United States. We're doing it for our own security and safety. And you guys need some funding because nobody else can do it but you. There's no other team in town. How much money are we talking about? How much money do you need to be successful?
Yeah, I'm a Silicon Valley guy. So we're going to set this is right now. This is an LLC. We have no intention of being nonprofit at this point. Will this turn into lobbying? Most likely, this will turn into lobbying. Absolutely, and that's what it's going to take. So again,
Well, if you want to be successful, it has to be completely properly financed, organized, and run like a business.
Correct.
It's not. It has to be successful at this level. So how much money do you need?
We've got a pitch deck. We've got a pitch deck. Our seed round is $2 million. So we're looking for a seed round of $2 million.
And how long is it going to float you? For how long are you going to?
That's 15 months. 15 months.
That's 15 months. So you need $2 million for 15 months.
That's with zero
and
revenue.
What you plan to do? What's your plan to accomplish? What are you planning to accomplish? Hold on a second. What are you planning to accomplish with this $2 million?
Yeah, so a couple things, a few things. One, we absolutely will increase our ground truth position in Ukraine. You know, from a resource perspective, we'll have resources on the ground. We also will plant our flag. We will plant our flag in Washington. We'll have an office in Washington. We will be inside the halls of Congress and the White House every day, 5 days a week, 7 days a week if they let us. So that's the main point. And then certainly we're going to continue to do polls. We're going to get really strong with the media. We're going to get
by media, I mean social media and the legacy media, the journalists, the Wall Street.
Both social media is also direct. We want to build relationships with the Washington Post, New York Times. We want to build these relationships because these are strong groups that can really help with this narrative. Yeah. The other thing that we've done, I think, is a real key thing is we've built an incredible advisory team. One key person on that team is a guy by the name of Michael Kaufman.
Before we go there, give me a second. Before we go there, so basically, for your organization to be successful, you need $2 million. $2
million,
and you guys accepting obviously donations. So if one of my listeners or somebody from my listeners willing to donate money, how they can go about it?
Alec?
Well, there's a donation button right there on our website, ptsinstitute.us. For all larger donors, we would probably ask to get in touch with us so we don't pay credit card fees on large donations. If someone wants to chip in $50, it's very easy. It's like go to our website and
So basically, right now you're collecting any amount of donations from $5 to $5,000 or $50,000, whatever it takes.
Yes, sir.
For the absolutely obvious cause to apply pressure on the U.S. Congress, pressure by American citizens for the American citizens. We're not paid by any foreign nation, by any foreign country. We're doing it as we should do as American citizens. Okay, and donations on the website. I mean, the means to donate is on the website. Yeah. Okay.
And the reason we need to do it full time and professionally because time is running out. We need to do it now. If we waste another year, there could be nothing to save there in Ukraine.
Okay. So from my point of view, let me say something from my point of view. I'm obviously not unbiased. I'm biased here. I have a very strong opinion. I'm completely concur with you both that there's no, unfortunately, such organization. And every dollar spent towards your cause is probably has a leverage 1 to 50 in terms of what potentially it can bring to Ukraine. By donating this money, whoever can hear me will save Ukraine hundreds, maybe thousands of lives. More importantly, will change the course of history. More importantly, change the outcome of this war and make the world safest place. So if you feel like donating money to Ukraine, this is the most efficient way of doing it. It doesn't get any more efficient than that.
Absolutely. And let me say this, okay? Because I'm the American here, right?
Well, so am I.
Let me say this. By birth.
That's a better statement.
All right, by birth. Let me say this. Yes, this is incredibly important for Ukraine. I'll make this statement. If we don't do this, if we don't step up, I don't see anyone else doing this. And I believe Ukraine will fall in 12 to 15 months. I believe Ukraine will fall in 12 to 15 months if we don't get the United States to step up to the levels we're recommending. And we can talk about what those levels are. But I want to say this. This is also about America. Okay? America, you need to fund PTSI. Because if you don't fund PTSI and we're not successful in securing Ukraine and therefore successful in landing a partnership with Ukraine, we are absolutely next. We are so far behind when it comes to drone warfare. What you're seeing in Israel right now, what you've been seeing in Ukraine for years, will happen to the United States. And there are congressmen and senators inside of Washington that understand what I'm saying very well. So we believe, and our premise is based on this. This just happens to be our first project. Ukraine is our first project. But at the end of the day, the Peace Through Strength Institute is about bringing ground truth and American opinion to the table to deal with any conflict that we feel is just. This could be Taiwan next. This could be parts of Israel
That's
next.
important. So it's not just about Ukraine.
Correct.
It's truly what you just said. That's a beautiful. I never realized that. This is what Trump promised us.
Yes.
He promised us when I voted for him, he will deliver peace through strength. And that got my vote. So I would like, as an American, which I am, to see that promise delivered.
Understand this. In this hearing, Armed Services Committee hearing we were in last week, Peace Through Strength was used maybe 55 times. 55 times. Secretary Hegseth used it many times. Why? Because of what you just said. It's at the top of the president's list, Peace Through Strength. Okay? There are certain things that our country needs to do to secure our own position. One, we do need to be drone dominant. We need to be drone dominant, as the president has indicated. Two, we do need to build a golden dome. And as Congressman Pat Harrigan has said, it needs to be golden domes. By the way, Pat Harrigan is a Green Beret from North Carolina, which we have an amazing.
Have you met him personally? Do you know him personally?
We know Pat personally, yes.
Okay. How many congressmen you've met over the last, I don't know, 6 months? What's your exposure to the Congress? Give me the
our exposure to the Congress is significant, but I will say this: we're trying to be real crisp. Okay, we don't want to spread out. We're trying to find who are our champions. Right now, we have a list of probably 15 that we think can be champions, and it is split between the Senate and the House. There's probably 5 or 6 on the Senate side and 9 or 10 on the House side that we are really focused on and building deep relationships with. So here's a couple of intentions we have. We had 12 congressional meetings last week. We'll be following up with every single one of those. They expect it. They expect us to provide our victory directive. Our victory directive is about an 8-page document, which is a very detailed plan on how to get to victory for America and Ukraine. That will be followed up with what's the potential to fund this directive. Do we need to legislate? Do we need to appropriate? Do we need to use frozen assets? Do we need to use USAI money, PDA money? How do we do this? But the first thing is to get them to green light this directive, this guidepost. And so we'll be following up with those 12 offices, 12 to 15 offices. The other thing is we are going to send out our poll, our detailed poll, in 2 ways. One, the detail of the poll we released on Thursday, that will go to every single office in Washington, including the White House. Every single office. That's 535 offices and the White House. Every single one of them will get a personal note with that poll, so they can have the same talking points that Don Bacon had last Thursday.
Jens, before I let you go, you've mentioned you have an advisor on the board who was a POW fighting for Ukraine, captured by the Russians. Am I hearing correctly?
Yes, sir.
So what is his story? What is he saying? Can you share?
Absolutely. Alex Drucke. I met Alex at the same summit, April 2025. I met Alex And he and I got to know each other, and I went out on a limb and said, "Would you be willing to talk to me in depth?" He said, "Absolutely." Alex lives in Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
So after that summit, instead of coming home to California, I went to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I spent an entire day with Alex, his mom, his grandma, and a production crew. We talked for 8 hours. He told me his story. Alex went to Ukraine in spring of 2022, maybe 5 or 6 weeks after the full-scale invasion, with intention of training. He's a 12-year Army vet, 2 tours in Iraq, with the intention of training Ukrainian soldiers, at that time civilians. Let's turn these men and women into soldiers. And got involved at a deep level and was hired by intelligence, to do reconnaissance missions for Ukraine. Alex went on a reconnaissance mission with 8 men, one of which was his good buddy Andy, who also is from Alabama, Huntsville, Alabama. Andy, Alex, and a third.
Gore was using the Americans to go behind the enemy lines?
Excuse me?
Gore was using Americans to go behind the enemy lines?
Absolutely. They were contracted to do that. They were contracted to serve with them. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. So Andy, Alex, and a third soldier, a Ukrainian soldier, got separated from the group of 8, and they were away from the other 5. Alex knew things were starting to get a little hot, and this was beyond reconnaissance, and told the Ukrainian, "You need to go back. Your helmet is not equipped for what could go down, and I don't want you to die." So he left. Well, there's a reason that's important, and I'll get to that. Alex and Andy dug in, and within a few minutes, there was a tank on them, Russian tank. They were able to hold position for an hour or so. Then they had to get out of there. So they started moving. The tank started shooting at them. And when I interviewed Alex, I said, "With the big gun, the big tank gun?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Wow, I didn't know that was used on humans." So they were able to avoid getting hit with a tank, whatever it's called, shell, and ended up in the woods. Hid for about an hour. Next thing they know, they're surrounded by 20 Russian soldiers. Alex told me if he were there alone, he'd be dead, because there was no way he was giving up. But he looked at Andy. Andy's much younger. And he said, "Man, I don't want to die." So they put down their weapons. About an hour into their captivity, first off, they were stripped down, checked for tattoos, and about an hour into their captivity, command showed up. First thing command did was shoot an AK round between Alex's legs, right below his private parts. Send him a message. Put a Glock to Andy's head. Said, "You're done. We're killing you." They were taken into Russia. They were taken into a prison in Russia. They were in prison for 105 days, tortured, electrocuted, starved, over and over and over.
You've heard it firsthand. It's not a second-hand information. Firsthand from him.
Firsthand, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I am building a documentary around this, so that firsthand will be in the public's preview soon. So it obviously a nightmare for Alex and Andy. They beat Alex so hard his sternum was disconnected from his ribs. Beat him so hard. Electrocuted him at least 4 times, if not more, to the point where he just didn't feel it anymore. Destroyed the entire left side of his face. So most of the time in captivity, he's hobbled and injured and starving and dehydrated, and They put him on the phone. They put him on the phone with Washington. They started calling random groups in Washington, thinking he's, you know, call the president, talk to the president. We want you to talk to the president. And Alex was like, hey, you guys are crazy. So ultimately, the State Department found out what's happening because Alex's mom and aunt got deeply involved. They want to save their nephew and their son. If it weren't for that Ukrainian, though, without the helmet, they would have just disappeared. But he knew exactly what happened, so he was able to tell command, hey, they've been captured. If that information wasn't clear, they might have looked for them for a few weeks and said, you know, we're not sure, maybe made no contact with his parents, right, or his mom. So everything happens for a reason. 105 days later, they were exchanged in a prison exchange. The Saudis helped cut this deal. The Americans helped cut this deal. They were exchanged. Both Andy and Alex were brought home. They were brought home after 105 days. By the way, Alex has been back to Ukraine. This was in end of 22 when he came home. He came home, dealt with his injuries, dealt with his PTSD, his trauma, went back to Ukraine twice. Yeah.
So I have a question for you. How come there's a zero, as far as I can tell, and I'm watching this field, zero information about American heroes who's fighting for Ukraine?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think first off, it's not zero. I think we have, and it's actually one of my roles in life is to amplify these men and women too. I have some friends that are medics, some women that are medics in Ukraine, and I try and amplify their position. When I was in Kyiv back in March, I did a memorial for 6 American soldiers who lost their lives in Ukraine. I went down to Maidan and planted their photos next to their flag at the square at the flag memorial. I had no idea what was going to happen, but I had press all over the place, Reuters and AP and CBS, and so we are starting to amplify this. I think the problem is, though, since they're not official, they're not part of the U.S. Army or the U.S. Navy or what have you, or Air Force. It's not official. They're volunteers. The government is not going to, acknowledge at this point. Now, look, through incredible organizations like the Weatherman Foundation, they have been able to get their VA benefits. They have been able to get the burials. They have been able to lean into a lot of that. So it hasn't gone completely unnoticed. And I also would say, based on what I told you about Mike Johnson and his comments, everyone's aware. It's a very hard thing to be public about as a U.S. congressman because they're not official. And we don't want the American public.
Do you have any assessment, any idea how many Americans lost their lives?
Yeah, sure. About 80 have lost their lives so far, about 80. And we've probably had 4,000 in total go over. Right now, there's probably 1,000 still in active duty in Ukraine, serving with International Legion, serving for Ukraine, serving with different brigades.
All right. Well, it's such an honor to have the gentleman as your advisor. Thanks for your time, guys. And I hope that people who hear this conversation will realize how hugely important what Bill and Alec are doing both. Thanks, gents. Alec, Bill.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
See you.